On and we are recording with Miss Laurel Guillen and your book, A Bellwether Christmas, which is absolutely wonderful. It was an absolute
Oh,
much needed change of pace. I've kind of been stuck in my own head for the last couple days, and after a while interviewing people about like war and finance and corruption and kidnapping, you kind of hit a point where you're like, why am I soaking my brain with this information every day? And
yeah.
this was just such like a happy, loving, warm book. And I moved up to Portland, Maine about a month and a half ago to see family and all that good stuff. But I also really, really like the cold. And every day I've been like, where's the snow? And I haven't had any yet. And I've kind of
Uh-oh.
been a little upset. And I woke up
Uh-oh.
today, this morning, the day we're doing this episode, and opened my blinds, and it still is just snowing like no tomorrow. So
Oh, right. Let it snow.
I took it as a good sign that this was
That is
supposed to happen today. But with that, Miss Guillen, please introduce yourself.
well, I'm Laurel Gillen or Guillen. Oh,
Guillen.
and what am I? Well, some people know me as Michael Gillen's wife. And you've had Dr. G on your show, and
Mm-hmm.
he's does a podcast, Science Plus God with Dr. G, and he used to work for ABC News and all that other stuff. We met at Cornell when he was grad student and I was an undergrad. And then we started dating out of Cornell, and so we've known each other for a long time. And I had a career as a journalist. I started out in radio news, then I did newspaper editing and newspaper and magazines, and then I ended up at local television in Providence, Rhode Island. And after that, I ended up working as a production manager and a freelancer with my husband's company. So I've been kind of mad. We figured out that having two TV on air people in the same family was going to be nuts. So, and I was like not that into it anymore anyway. So uh, I kind of ended up doing that, and we ended up making a movie together and doing a lot of fun stuff. It's been quite a ride, and this was something. Writing a book is something I've always wanted to do, and never had the inspiration to do it. An inspiring enough story, because writing a book, it's like making a movie. I mean, you have to really be invested in your topic. There are people who, okay, they just write because that's their job, or they make movies because that's their job. But in terms of, if you really want to write a book, or make a movie uh, because you want to say something, then you really have to wait for the right story to come by. And this kind of just downloaded into my brain a few Christmases ago, all in one piece, just like, and it wasn't even anything I was expecting, because I'd long since given up on doing a book, and there it was, and I wrote it, and that's how it came about. But there's also a longer story behind that if you want to hear it.
Sure. If we could real quick, not real quick though, I kind of want to hear your. Could you expand on the download? Because that's something that I've heard from other authors before. That's something I don't do it anymore, but I was very into, as your husband knows, I was very into graphic design for several years, and like you're talking about, even with this podcast, if your heart's really not, I can do an interview that I don't want to do. Like I'm not, I do
Yeah,
have that white Irish Catholic Puritan, just discipline, work, shut up and work, be happy
yeah,
you have work. I know how to do that, but in terms of that works a little more for something like if you're working at like a warehouse or you're going to the gym, you can grit your teeth and do it. But in terms
right.
of in the creative space, you
Yes,
do, and it sounds, snobby, but like your heart has to be there or it's very apparent that it's not.
right.
And you can find that with graphic design. I can find it with this podcast. I've never done writing, but I imagine it's the same in writing that
It's the same.
if the spark isn't there, if there's not that live wire, you're kind of making a painting without color. And it's you can do it. You can do it. You can make it. It's just you can
Yeah,
tell there's no warmth, there's no love behind it. And
right.
that being said, so along with the interest, but then there's also the download. And I'm glad you used that word because I've described that to my mom. So there's some graphic design pieces I'd make that would take me 80 hours to make. And, my mom would be like, because I'm a biology major. My mom would be like, how did you? And I'd tell her, I'd be like, I was walking on the treadmill, zap, there it is. And I'm like, oh,
There
that's
it
what I
is.
have to do. And
Right.
it's the most psychedelic experience to get a download of a fully fleshed out thing and be like, this is what I have to produce now. So we'll get into the longer story, but if I could just kind of hear your experience or explanation of the download experience, if you could
Yeah,
expand on it.
that was interesting. I know it was around Christmas time. It was just after Christmas, I believe in January. And I would think he was coming out of church or something like that. And it was just the kind of thing where all of a sudden this whole plot came into my brain, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" And it was a total surprise because, as I said, I didn't think, I was had put writing books aside. I wasn't even thinking about doing that kind of thing, and it was so instant and so detailed that I just ran home and wrote it all down. It came out to like 3 pages, and it ended up being, pretty much. I ended up changing it a little as I went, but that was pretty much it. And when I did it, it's because I made some connections. I made some connections that my brain had probably just been sitting on for a while, and just God said, "Okay, now is the time." And he just kind of opened that little spigot, and phew, it all downloaded.
Aldous Huxley refers to it in The Doors of Perception. He calls it the mind at large. He calls it the spigot or the faucet, to where your waking everyday brain is actually working to keep most of reality out because it's too overwhelming. And then every once in a while, God, whatever you want to call it, turns it, and creativity just flows out. And you're like, there it is. There's
Right.
the thing. And it just falls out in your lap. You have no idea what it is, but there is like an overwhelming sensation of like, I need to write it down.
Yes.
And then you take your time and actually flesh it out. And like you said, it's 3 pages. Well, obviously you have to turn it into the book, but like it's one of the I don't know. Sometimes when I get that, I almost feel fraudulent because I'm like, I didn't make this up. Like I found it. It's like
Right.
finding a
Right.
hundred
Right.
dollar
Right.
bill. You're like, I didn't earn this, but it's mine now. Like it's a very yeah, and that's kind of really all there is to explain. Anyone that hasn't had that experience, I mean, it is yeah, you get hit by like a bolt of lightning, and then
Yes.
it's there.
Yes.
There's
And
really not much more to explain than that. It's just you
my
found it.
husband and I were just watching a movie. I've been wanting to see this movie. You should see it, by the way. It's called As It Is in Heaven. It's a Swedish movie, made, I guess, about 2004, 2005, was nominated for Academy Award for Foreign Language Film. And it's a wonderful movie. We haven't finished it. We started watching it, and there's a line in there where the main character, who is this brilliant conductor, says to this church choir, he says to them, all the music, just think of all the music as already being out there. He
Mhm.
says, and you're just going to take it down.
Yeah.
And he's got them thinking along these lines, and it's a wonderful movie. You should see it. And I'd heard a lot of good things about it, but I thought of that when you said that. It's kind of like, almost like it's out there, uh, and and we're plugging into it, if we're and you know part of our being creative is being plugged into that. And in my life, of course, I think that comes from God. So the more I'm plugged into what He wants, the more I'm ready for when He, gives me things.
Yeah, think of it as already being made. I mean, this where I so today's Friday, December 16th, 2022. I started the podcast 3 years and 4 days ago. It's gone through many iterations, and
Uh-huh.
this studio in my apartment is like the newest form, but like even how it looks, we'll try and move the camera around.
Oh, I like the
I mean,
lights, those little strip LED strip
yeah,
lighting.
this all came. It was this past summer. Was literally, I was woken up. I woke up. I was in a hotel and was getting ready to fly out to my little brother's bachelor party. And I meditate as I do every morning. Meditate, pray, and I was sitting there and just it just kind of zapped. I just had this idea of. I mean, truly, you can't see it all, but exactly how it's laid out. It just all kind of came down like in my lap. And I was like, oh, there it is. That's the thing I'm gonna make now.
Yes,
And
yes.
that's happened multiple times in my, but I have found, to kind of continue on this thread, is it's really frustrating when you try to force it. And you're like, where was that?
You can't
How do
force
I
it.
get the next one? And it's just
Yeah, right.
nothing
No,
there.
nope, nope,
It's
nope.
flipping through a book and there's just empty words. You're turning up, you're emptying your pockets. You're like, where are my keys? And you just you're trying to force it. You're like, where's the magic? And like you can still create, it doesn't have to be a download, but like, yeah, man, there's really nothing compared to it, to when you just get the zap and you're like, it's, I mean, it is the divine inspiration.
Yeah,
And
that's it. That's it.
that's I'm kind of right now, I think, in a spot where like I'm not really really even realizing it now until I'm talking with you. Just kind of been off for a couple days, and I think it's because I don't know where like the next thing is. And
Hmm.
with this podcast, it's terrifying. I never know what lays more than a week out. And when I look back over years and I can look at the actual numerical data and see that it's growing, it still gets very intimidating when I don't know where the next growth spurt's coming from.
Hmm.
And I have unsuccessfully tried to just, truly give it up to God and be like, I'm just going to keep working hard and it's going to work out. And it's done it so far, but sometimes you're on a road at night and the headlights only show so far in front of you and you're like, I sure hope this road keeps going. And
Yes.
I think that's
Well,
kind of
I mean, when you say that, it's funny because, I heard once somebody in a sermon or something, somebody said, it says that, God will be a lamp unto your feet. And, when you hear that, you've heard it a lot. Oh, he's a lamp unto you. And you feel, okay, so he's going to, show me the way. Well, you think about it, it's a lamp unto your feet. That doesn't show you very far.
no, no, no.
So he's not saying there's where you're going to be, there's the whole vista, there's your life, there's
Nope.
everything. No,
Nope.
he's saying I'm showing you where to take the next step and you have to just take that.
Yeah, and that kind of is
And that's scary, sure, because
terrifying.
aside from that little space of light, there's just nothing or darkness or whatever. So, but that's what he's saying. He's saying, trust me, take that next step. I'm showing you where where the next step is, and that's why you have to. You kind of that's part of the whole surrendering, to it. Like you said, it's hard because yourself wants to go. Well, I want to do it. No, you really do have to surrender to it, because that's the way it ends up moving the best.
It,
uh
it's the surrendering, and yeah, the mind, the ego wants the roadmap. I want to see the
right.
next 100 miles. I want to plot out where I'm going. I want to know
I
when
want
I
to
need to.
know where I'm going. Yeah.
And then, and then you, and like your rational mind, you do have to like look back at your path and be like, it's worked out perfectly. Whenever you look back, you go, it has worked out perfectly. And then
Right.
there is just some weird, you know, never have I woken up and really hoped the sun was going to rise this morning. I've
Exactly.
just assumed it's always going
Uh-huh.
to be there.
Hmm.
Yet, when I look back at my own 3 year journey on this podcast, and it's always worked out perfectly. I mean, like a Swiss watch, just perfect, like a Rube Goldberg machine, just everything falling into space, just like Tetris.
Yeah.
And then I instantly get amnesia and go, but now it's gonna fail. I have no idea what's
Right,
coming.
right, 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 right.
And eventually you start to realize you're like, okay, this is a form of surrendering. You have to trust. And then I kind of get not angry, but yeah, no, I would say angry, confused. I'm like, but why does it have to be trust? Like, how come I just can't see where I'm going? Why does it
Mhm.
have to be this? this weird daily like initiation ritual of like, do you have faith? Do you trust? And yeah, I don't really have an answer for that yet. It just kind of seems to be what it is. And but to go back to what you just said though, is the daily surrender, you kind of made a good point. You said that's when it works out best.
Mhm.
Could you maybe expand a little more on that?
Well, because I think it gives you when things, you say everything has worked out perfectly. Things don't seem to work out perfectly in the present sometimes.
No.
Sometimes it's only when you look back because you're not seeing everything that's going to happen. And when you're just focusing on, I said one time, it's like people make these elaborate plans, into the future and stuff like that. And it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, you really you can have some general goals, but in terms of really planning your life, I think 6 months tops. Really,
Yeah. Best case scenario, 6 months.
yeah, really. And anything beyond that, you're just wasting your time. Um, and I think when you have that attitude that, okay, I don't know everything that's going to happen. I don't know how things that were bad in my life are going to ever be good, but or I'm ever going to look back on them and say, oh, that's good. But then it happens. So, these things keep happening to you, then you get in a better attitude and you stop trying and worrying about certain things.
Hmm.
And it makes your life on a daily basis much more pleasant. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you can struggle against it every day and just beat your head against the wall. But like you said, that's you can figure out the secret to life. No, it's one of those secrets to making your life just a little more calm, settled, a little less panicky, a little less worried, a little less, all that stuff. Because you can keep reminding yourself, what,
It's
it all
always
works
worked
out.
out.
It's always worked out. It's always worked out.
Yeah. That is a good point. Just it always works. And eventually you kind of just throw your hands up and you're like, I'm just gonna assume the sun's probably gonna rise tomorrow.
Yeah,
My feet are probably gonna be able to carry me to the kitchen.
that's
When I
right.
when I flip the light on, the light's gonna come. There are just certain things where you're like, you know what? Maybe and it really is. I always just get this mental imagery of like a really complex like bridge, like a not even suspension bridge, just like all the girders and rivets and
Right.
everything. And I always just kind of get this imagery that I'm like walking across just like a bottomless canyon, and like this bridge is just forming up underneath me, almost like a bunch of like Lego pieces all flying together and
Some giant
perfectly.
steampunk contraption.
Yeah, no, perfect. Yeah, like a giant steampunk Swiss watch gears, but it all is just perfectly forming up beneath me. And it's terrifying because when you look 10 feet in front of you, you're like, that's a drop into 1,000 miles of nothingness. But after 32 and a half years of the bridge forming up beneath you every step of the way, eventually you kind of do have to like ask yourself, like, you really think today's the day that it stops? Like that's a bold assertion.
I know. And you really have to think too, is it really me that's causing this?
And
No.
that's the and then you
So
get into the yeah.
yeah. So then again, then you say, you don't have that kind of control over things. And that's what makes you say, well, maybe I should be grateful to something else besides myself, because I sure as heck haven't gotten myself out of all these messes.
Yeah, I saw a quote or someone left a I don't even know anymore, but I saw there was a quote that passed my eyes. I don't know where it's from, but it was all we know is that we are here and that we are now. Everything else, all other human understanding is moonshine. And I'm kind of getting more and more in tune with that, where you're right. It's like, am I even doing this? Am I just, you watch a movie, you never think it's you. A really good movie you might get sucked into.
Mhm.
But you ever have those moments where you're scared or something, then you're like, you look around, you're in a theater, and you just see the
Yeah.
lights on the floor, and you're like, oh wait, I get that more and more. Where I'm like, oh, this is intimidating. Oh, what? All this is going on. I gotta do the podcast. I gotta set up my apartment. I gotta find more guests, and then sometimes deep in meditation or prayer, you kind of get this sensation of like, am I just watching this? It's a great movie. Am I watching this? And then, like a movie, you start to get less and less scared and more like, oh, this is fascinating. I wonder how it turns out. I
All
I wonder
right.
what turn it takes.
Yeah, I can get a little detached there. That's better. A little take a step back.
Like some of the best times ever is when your favorite band or artist releases an album and you sit down and listen to it for the first time and you can
Hmm.
never get it back, but it's the first time you hear it. And that's so much better than like the thousandth time you've heard it. And you
Hmm.
got to wonder then, is that the gift of God? That what we take as terror, how is it going to work? I don't know what's coming tomorrow. Do you need to shift your mindset and instead go, when someone sees a really good movie and like your friend hasn't seen it, what do you say to them? Oh, I wish I was you. I wish I could see it for the first time again. Because you know how it ends. You know how the Harry Potter goes, or the Lord of the Rings, or the Saving Private Ryan, whatever. Yeah, I've seen it. You can never watch that like nail biting football game again. You're like, I know how it ends. I don't get you're like, I've watched it a million times.
Hmm.
Is that then the gift of God? Is you get to watch it for the first time, and
Yes.
it's don't be scared. Like, watch it. It's great.
Hmm.
It's the best movie ever. And like you're ruining it by being scared. Like not ruining it, but
You're not taking it all in.
you're maybe not enjoying every little like flavor of it.
Yep, I'd say so. And I'd have to say, when I was writing this book, I
Oh
was
yeah.
enjoying every moment because there were times when I sat there going, how am I going to do this? What am I, am I going to have the time or whatever? And I would sit down and say, what am I going to say now? And then I would just feel love. I would just feel so much love. And I had so much love for the characters. Um, and so then it would just pour out. And that, when you talk about the spigot too, that's part of the spigot, I think, of creativity is love. It really, there's some connection there because I couldn't have written this book without it.
And it's apparent. I mean, when I was reading it, I got I don't know, I just in my mind it was just that sort of like maybe it's from childhood, but that just like softness of like the old Disney movies you grew up
Well,
watching,
it's,
you know?
it's funny that you said that because I kind of wrote this as the kind of book I would have loved when I was 10,
Yeah.
or what the
I
kind of book
liked I liked it
I love.
at 32 for the record.
Yeah, I know. In fact, most of the people who tell me, I haven't heard that from that many kids. I don't know how many kids have written it, but a lot of I've read it. A lot of adults have, and they all love it, and they all say like, "This is like the kind of book I love to read
Yeah.
when I was younger." And so that's the kind of feeling, and that's the kind of feeling that a good book gives you, and that's what I
Mm.
wanted people to have, that feeling when they finish reading it, like they had, what did they say? I had no pretensions to literature because literature is like giving you some kind of insight into the human condition. But this was just a little window into the human condition, so to speak. But I wanted it to be something that would leave you with a good feeling, and that was what I was really aiming for. And I think that's why it took love to write it, because you have to feel that love coming off the page.
Mm. And I will say that kind of a little stuck out a little bit. And I don't know if this is maybe like another doorway or a thread pulling onto something else you would do in the future. But you did give not that I've ever been in combat, but I've interviewed a lot of guys that were, and they'll talk about when time slows down. I mean, I've literally interviewed Delta Force, like CIA guys, like in the like Jason Bourne life, and you kind of nailed it when like the way the sun's setting, the way the temperature is dropping, and there's almost like an oxygen sucked out of the room. And I think, what did you say, a shadow and a shadow? And there
Yes.
is that the hair. And again, I say this as a guy with a biology degree that does a podcast while wearing slippers, but I can live vicariously through the Delta Force and Navy SEAL operators I have interviewed, and they will all write along the same lines. Is all of a sudden it's like
Yes.
the sound gets turned down and you see every like rock, you see the outline of every leaf,
Right.
and there's just this moment of like zero, and it's like something's wrong. And
Yeah,
like it kind of
I
sticks
know,
out
I know,
because
I know.
it is a very like warm, like Disney,
Well,
beautiful
but
thing.
there is some peril and some action, and then you have to think too, in a when people are in a crisis, that is the kind of thing that does happen to them. And also when they're doing something, I asked my brothers once because they were all athletes, and I said to them, "Did you ever have that feeling where time slowed down?" And one of them, I forget which of them, said yes, that he was running down a field with a ball, with a football, I think it was, or maybe it was a basketball because they played a lot of different sports, and he had that feeling where he was just you just knew every second, everything around
Mm.
him, knew he was going to get where he was going, knew that everything else was slower than he was. It was just one of these things that just stretched out. So I think that's part of it when you're and that was fun. That was fun writing that because I thought, well, how would I feel in that situation if I was that character, who's immediately got to make some very quick decisions. So and Bart's he's a lot of things, impetuous, headstrong, impulsive, but he's also brave. And he processes everything and then makes the right decision. So
I thought there are also some kind of beautiful. Have you ever read The Alchemist?
I started reading it. I don't think I ever ended up finishing it because I was very curious about it. So a lot of people had mentioned it, but I didn't, I don't think I finished it. I remember thinking, okay.
Yeah,
uh,
it was one of those things I had always heard, like you gotta read it, you gotta read it, and I think I had tried to read it before, but I remember I eventually did listen to it on audiobook and I liked it. But one thing I've always liked about it, and it's not unique to The Alchemist, is that's just the example in my mind, is the kind of I think there's a line from it, and it's like all the world's lessons can be like inscribed onto the head of a pin, or like there's basically saying like there's only a couple lessons in life, but it manifests in such a multitude of ways that it can look like Da Vinci and the ancient pyramids and stealth bombers and quantum mechanics, but it's the same almost Joseph Campbell hero's journey esque. It's just repeating and manifesting in many different ways, but
right.
it's the same things. And you do have those brief moments in this where it seems like it's all you get these. I don't know if I'm putting it all the planets kind of aligning, these brief glimpses into reality where it's well, we have like a ruler who cares for us, and the ruler has a ruler, and the ruler has a ruler, and and
Yes.
they pay tribute to the knights, and the knights pay tribute to the king, and the king must have a creator. And you get these brief. It is almost the sort of that trust, that surrender we were talking about earlier, where for a
Mhm.
brief moment, like our puny minds do get a glimpse at the grand design, and
Mhm.
it's calming, it's loving. You're like, oh, and then it dissolves back into chaos. But I think
Yeah.
you did do a good job with that, and it's even just the, you know, why I wish I could be free. I wish I could run around, and it's like, well, why are you with the owner? Well, the owner feeds me and gives me a nice place to sleep, and it's like, well, vice versa. Yeah, they might want to go be a merchant or go play in a town or something, but you do just get these tiny little. I don't know if I'm putting it into words correctly.
Yeah, I know you switched from a animal character to the shepherd, but I
Hmm.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's that they have all these decisions and all these choices, and but when you see them, sometimes you can understand them. uh Even though we're talking about the 13th century in central Italy, uh
Hmm.
it's universal. There's some very universal things about the characters and what they go through. Um, and it's interesting. I wanted to tell you that so I don't forget the kind of history because you were talking about the download,
Oh
and
yeah, I'm sorry. I
the
could
thing
forget.
about the
I
download that
completely sidetracked that.
I
I
know, but
apologize.
the thing about the download is that it came. Uh, there were kind of like three events in my life that it took before this download could happen, and it took over 20 years for those three
Okay.
things to come together. So the first thing is that over 20 years ago, I took my little 80-year-old grandmother to Italy. Okay. She had never been outside the country, didn't have a passport, very devout Catholic, and always wanted to go to Rome. And my uncle was going to take her. And then my uncle died. And I heard about an ecumenical group that was going with a friend of the family was going, and she was an older woman, and they were. I was like, this is perfect. Go with a ecumenical group. We'll be in a group, so I can use a wheelchair with her, and I can get some help if I needed to. So we went, and it ended up being a fabulous trip. In fact, we got to meet Pope John Paul II. I
Oh
mean, it
wow.
was amazing. It was as a surprise to her. Her bishop got her tickets to a papal audience uh, after a St. Peter's Square mass. So we ended up going up and sitting on the top uh, uh, platform where all the little Italian brides and grooms sit, so the Pope can bless them afterwards. So we were sitting with the brides and grooms, and Pope John Paul actually put his hands on my grandmother's head and blessed her, and it was amazing. But what was even more amazing to me was just Central Italy. I just fell in love with the whole region. It was just, to me, it was just perfect and beautiful. And the history of it also intrigued me. I've always loved history, and I've always loved medieval times. And the particular history around the central Italy, of course, is the history of the Franciscans and the early Franciscans from the early 13th century. And so I saw a lot of the sites, Assisi and Laverna and all these other places. And they really had an impact on me. So when I came home from that, I started researching the heck out of this time period. I mean, I have books and books and books and books. And I've read them all. So, I mean, this is over several years. And because I thought this would be a great setting for a book.
Hmm.
I really thought there was going to be a book out of it. And then I researched and researched it, and then I would try something, and it just didn't come out. It just didn't. So I kind of put that aside, but I still love that. I still love that time period and love that research. So that was 20 some years ago. And then a few years after that, we adopted our son, and we found out he was 4. And within a few years, it was very apparent that he had this special affinity with animals. I mean, he loved them, they loved him. Vicious dogs, would lie down and lick his hand. I mean, it was just one of those things. So he started adopting animals. We had a little bit of land, so we had enough. And he started by adopting an older horse, an older gelding. And then he adopted these 2 lambs. And then he adopted a wild donkey and her newborn foal. So he ended up with 2 donkeys, a horse, and 2 sheep. And of course, I was helping him take care of these because you know, my husband wasn't gonna. I was the one who was helping him, and I got to know these animals, and I really enjoyed observing them because they did some things that I really thought were pretty remarkable. I didn't know that animals had these types of different personalities and abilities. So that really was kind of creating the characters that I was going to use in my book later. I didn't know it at the time. And the third thing is that my research in the midst of my research, I knew this fact, but it just, was there in my head, which is that this Christmas celebration that we kind of take for granted, where you go and you put out your manger scene,
Hmm.
or creche, or the church has a living nativity, that's something that didn't always exist. It's something was kind of, I don't want to say invented, I would say more popularized, but introduced by St. Francis in the 13th century. He had come back from the Holy Land. He'd come back from Jerusalem, where he'd gone thinking, oh, I'm going to go talk to the Muslim Sultan. I'm going to try to convert him. And he went over there and he talked to the Muslim Sultan, and he didn't convert him, but the Muslim Sultan thought he was this wonderful, charming, great guy. And so instead of, putting him to death, which would have been fine with Francis. He would have been a martyr. He thought, okay,
Yeah.
maybe I'll get killed. He said, you know what, you're a great guy. I'm gonna let you go into the Jerusalem and the environs of Jerusalem and go see the holy sites. And this was the middle of the Crusades. So if you were a Christian, you didn't get in to see that because the Muslims were in control of Acre and Jerusalem and all those places, and they everybody was busy fighting each other. But Francis got in, saw the sites, and a few years later, he decides to do this special thing on Christmas Eve, and they had a cave in a hermitage up near a little place called Grescio, and they turned this cave into a manger scene. They put an ox and a donkey and a little manger and a babe, and Francis gets up and preaches, and it's something that became like an instant hit. It was just like all of a sudden this was it. Everybody all over Europe starts doing the same thing at Christmas time, and now it's next year it'll be exactly 800 years because it happened in
Oh
1220.
wow.
Yeah, 1223. For 800 years this has been part of our celebration, and we just assumed that it's always been, but it had a beginning. So uh that was something I knew, but of course I hadn't put all this stuff together. And then when the download came, it all came together. My knowledge of Italy, of 13th century, of the Franciscans, and of what Francis had introduced, and these animal personalities and traits and characters. And there was my book.
And that's the idea of this. We're gonna do this every year. This is gonna be the thing. This is gonna be the tradition we do every year.
Yeah, and
Oh,
that's what it ended up. Yeah, because it was, everybody loved it. I mean, the people came. It happened at night. So not only did Francis start the tradition of this living nativity, but the midnight mass with candles,
hmm.
and Christmas carols were just becoming there. There were liturgical songs that had to do with the birth of Christ, but there weren't. Christmas carols were just starting to become popular because the folk tunes, like, mostly they were coming like from France and places like that. But these little folk tunes were starting to become Christmas carols. So all that whole Christmas Eve celebration, and the Living Nativity and everything, that was something that Francis started.
That's beautiful. The Okay. Well, now are there? Because before this, you said you've actually been been having a lot of like media interactions with it, and like I said, I'm 32 and I read it. Are there some, I guess, ripples outside of the book? So if you have this whole background and the download, and it kind of seems like it's coalescing into just this point. I mean, even for instance, like with this studio, like this was the download. At one point, this was like the tip of the spear, and it's like I
Mhm.
create this, and then once you do the download and flesh it out, you kind of have the feeling of like, now what? And it's, well, now you're moving forward, and then there's another part to the story. Is there anything like from this book, your interactions with it, or those who have read it? Are there any more pieces sort of falling in place to a bigger picture, or is that something that will, I suppose, take time to only see in hindsight? I don't know if I'm putting that correctly in words.
Well, I've had it's been a good reaction, and it's won some awards already, the book, so that's good. And we do have some plans to make it into a movie, so we're hoping down the line it'll be a movie. And there is somebody who's probably going to be working on the script soon. Um, so because when my husband read it, he said, well, this should be a movie. And I was like, well, I'm only thinking about it as a book.
Yeah,
I'm not, I'm just thinking book. But he's like, no, this should be a movie. So that's kind of nice. But I really just, as I said, I really just want it to be a blessing to people, especially our Christmas time, because a lot of times my husband and I love to watch Christmas movies and read Christmas books and stuff, but so many of them are just kind of let's just set romance at Christmas because it's nice decorations and we can have them going sledding and skiing and or let's set the murder mystery at Christmas because then we can use eggnog and things. I mean, so you sit there and you go, what does this have to really have to do with Christmas? So I'm very pleased that the book I wrote that was a Christmas book is really about Christmas,
Hmm.
and it doesn't hit you over the head with the message, but you get it. I mean, when you once you've read it, and and also just my love for animals. I mean, I really do have love animals probably almost as much as my son does, and I really think that we have to wonder, especially if you're a Christian, you have to sit there and think about what Christian stewardship means, and that's something people have to think about, especially today, because there's a lot of you have very extremes. I mean, you have some scientific establishments who just treat animals like dirt, basically,
Hmm.
and then you've got people in certain uh, um, uh, animal rights groups who equate animal lives with human lives. I mean, to them, an animal's life is worth what a baby's life is, or a child, or a person. So you've got these extremes, and it's like, how do you, if you've got this view of Christian stewardship, how should you be thinking about animals? And in that sense, I think Francis is a really good person to know about, because if you understand his view of them, which is they are part of God's creation, they are wondrous things that God did create, and they, in their own way, by being who they are worshiping God. That's when he tells the birds, just go and be birds,
Yeah.
go sing, go fly.
Yeah.
That's giving honor to God. That's kind of a great insight, I think, into how you should regard the creatures that we share this world with. And it I think that's another thing that I really wanted to get across to people, that there is that way of thinking that is on neither of those extremes, but it's a very respectful and uh, kind of awe-inspiring way at looking at creatures.
And then I just have to ask for my own curiosity. That's kind of what I guess what we first chatted about at the beginning of this is now that you've written this and it's been crystallized into a book. Um, because I know I get this. Do you ever get like a feeling of now what? Of I think the only way I can describe is like when I finally achieve the goal I've set out to get. It's very bittersweet because I've found that having a goal is an organizing principle for me. It
Mhm.
that pulls everything in one direction. It's like gravity. It doesn't matter where the river or the stream or the waterfall is going. It's all going down the mountain. And I find that is, although stressful and then, like we talked about earlier, scary, and you got to surrender and have faith. But it is for the most part an organizing principle. When I have something to do and I have a goal to achieve, I've found that whether it's lifting weights in high school or getting into medical school out of college or doing graphic design or now doing this podcast, when I have an overarching goal, everything else kind of snaps to attention. I sleep better.
Mhm.
I work out better. I'm more efficient with my time.
Right.
Even in other things, I find I'm like a better person. I find I'm more like loving and stuff that's completely unrelated to whatever it is I'm doing. And it's so great. And I'm so hell bent on achieving the goal.
Mhm.
And then when I achieve it, I kind of feel like I'm standing like, what do I do with my hands? Like I don't know what to
All
do. I
right.
don't know what to do now. And then I set the next goal and it goes on and on and on. Do you
Right.
get that feeling at all now that you had the background, you had the download, you put it in and now it's fleshed out?
I've got a few decades on you, Tommy, and I'm kind of like this didn't happen on my own. This is something I couldn't have even dreamed about doing.
Hmm.
I never would have thought I would do something like this. I mean, I was hoping I would do a book, and it didn't happen because of my own efforts or my own goal setting. It happened when God decided to give it to me and gave me the ability to do it, to to find the time to write this. So, and I'm so grateful to him for letting me do this and for being able to be a part of this, that I'm fine. I mean, if I, I would love to write another book, but if another book doesn't happen, I'm fine, because this is greater than I could have imagined.
Yeah.
Um, and I think as you get older, you start to see, I know my husband talks about this, like he talks about dreams and destiny, and that sometimes you get so caught up in what you want to do, and you can kind of bypass some of the things that God wants for you.
Hmm.
Uh, and the things he wants for you are so much better. And you don't even realize it because you don't even have any idea what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Um, and you have to, if you're too goal oriented is good as long as you're keeping yourself open to what God may be. It's just like when they say, okay, well, things didn't work out the way I wanted to. Well, maybe there's an opportunity here. Well, yeah, maybe there is, because maybe God is closing a door.
Yeah.
That's what they talk about: closing a door, opening doors. So you've got to be in your life, you've got to be kind of ready for that. If you're not ready for God to direct you, you won't be directed by God, and you're going to miss out on things that you would not have even imagined.
Okay. I'm picking up what you're putting down. You seem to be a little more at peace and wise with this than I am. I think I'm still very much so a bull in a china shop.
Oh, you've
Uh,
got things to prove,
I've
so
yeah, I've definitely still have that hard headed. I feel like I'm like I know what's best. I gotta very much so that sort of like human. I have to get the round peg into the square hole. Like I will make this happen, through hell or high water.
right.
And I don't think that's entirely bad, but I can definitely see where it can be too much. And I think I need to
It
be
can be
more.
limiting. It can be
What
limiting.
can be correct? It's
Yes,
if you're not open to other possibilities, you're going to completely miss out on it.
right.
And
And those are possibilities that you are not going to
you're not
necessarily
even,
have anything to do with. It's just going
yeah,
to be what life is going to, and God is going to do. Uh, through your life, that's going to be those possibilities. So you can't, it's not like you can sit there going, well, I haven't thought of all the possibilities, maybe I should think of some more possibilities.
that's,
You
that's
can,
it. Yeah.
because I can see that you've already started to think that way, aren't you, Tommy?
Oh,
Well,
no, I
okay.
have. You
No, no, no,
nailed the
it's
head.
not.
You nailed it.
No, it's nothing you can do. It's nothing you can do
Oh,
except be open to it. And the way you be open to it is be close to God and thinking, okay, God, I'm here. Talk to him, say, you know what, I think my day's going this way, but if you want it to go that way, I'm ready for it. You just got to be. He's not going to do this if you're not, open and willing to. You're just not going to. It's either not going to happen, or you're just not going to see it.
I got you. It's like the luck is when opportunity meets preparation, or a better way to visualize it is like if you're cracking a safe, you can't just hit the code. You also have to be, pushing and pulling in the right way. And I think that I pride myself so much on my ability to carry out the goal once I get the download that, yeah, I can kind of, I feel like I'm standing at the boss's desk and I'm like, I did the thing. Where's the
Whereas
next,
now,
what do you want me to do? Give me the, and I get impatient with, no, and you just said it perfect. No, I think I really needed to hear that. It's not that you go, all right, I haven't thought of all the possibilities. It's no. So many times, like the biggest changes in this podcast have truly come from like, I'll get an email from someone and it'll be like,
out
hey,
of the blue, right?
yeah, like, hey, I was on a plane sitting next to someone and we ended up chatting and I asked what they were listening to and they showed me a podcast and they were listening to a podcast and that podcast was you and you were talking about a book and I love that book. And next thing I know, I realized, I'd love to be on your, and it's like a guest I never could have in a million years got. And no part of me is like, good job, Tommy, you made that happen. No, you're like, oh, awesome, the lottery.
Yeah,
And
right.
I don't. I think I needed to hear that. Is no, don't can't just sit around and go, what other no, that no,
Yeah.
it just You got to
Yeah.
be open. You got to be open. You have to work hard. You have to be. It's not gonna just. You can't just have it, but you do have to be close to God, and very much so. I mean, it's sort of the antithesis of the human ego trying to control everything. No, you just have to go. It'll fall in my lap when it's meant to.
Hmm. Exactly. Exactly.
And it's hard
And
for me to be at peace with that, but it's the
I
answer.
know. Well, you know what? The longer you live this life, the more it'll become a little easier because first of all, it gets easier the more you practice it. And second of all, the more you sit there and look back at, like you said, you look back at your life and it'll start to occur to you. And it's like, like,
It's it's happened before. You
yeah,
don't need to
right,
make the sunrise.
right,
It's gonna
right, right,
rise.
right,
I
right.
got you.
And so that youthful kind of, I'm just gonna go for it,
Hard
is
headed.
gonna just kind of moderate when things will happen and surprises will happen and good ones, bad ones, and you'll start to realize what I'm saying. So, in 20 years, you'll be fine with this, I'm sure. But
Oh,
if you want to save yourself a lot of grief in the meantime,
just enjoy the ride.
yeah, it's kind of like that. Enjoy the ride because you are hanging on to the one who's going to keep you through that ride and who's
I
going to,
got you.
it's not just like enjoy the ride, but I don't know, I'm in free fall. No, that's not it. It's you're enjoying the ride because you're being carried.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way you enjoy the ride.
The giant steampunk contraption is
Yeah,
forming right in front of you. Just
or right in front of you. Right. Exactly. Exactly. And another thing before I forget, because you're a
Mhm.
graphic designer, so I wanted your opinion of the illustrations in this book.
I
And
thought so. For me, I never like took official graphic designing. I never
uh-huh.
took a class. I never took anything. I just, for me, it has always been when does it feel like it's right? Like setting up this studio. There's no, I don't get graded on it. I knew what I wanted it to look like. I wanted this to kind of be futuristic with lights and neon and things. And I wanted everything to be matte black. So for me, it's very much so what I feel is correct.
Hmm.
And I know that's kind of a BS answer, but they felt correct.
Okay,
And
they felt correct. Okay, well,
and
I can.
I say that as someone who most people look at the stuff I make and they go, I don't like this. And I go, I don't care. I think the one that Dr. Guillen has, that hoodie, people look
Yeah,
at it,
right.
they're like, what is it? It's like it's a tree with a galaxy superimposed
Oh
on
no,
a
it's wonderful. I
but
love that.
but to me it's I'm moving the dial on the safe and it just goes and I
Right.
go, there it is. And someone else might look at it and go, what do you mean there it is? And I go, there it is.
Yeah,
And other people are like,
it's
you
done.
this looks like the rantings of a madman. And I'm like, it
No,
may
no,
be,
and
but I
you're like,
love it.
no, it's perfect. It's perfect. That's just
So
where it's supposed to be. Well,
I'm
the
not
reason
sure my feedback is the most technically valued.
I'm gonna here's an example of
Hmm.
illustration. I just want to tell you the story behind the illustrations.
Sure, please
That's
do.
kind of fun, since you're a creative, artistic type as well. Um, about a long time ago, when I was first out of college, one of my jobs was working for. I did a column for a science fiction magazine, so I was in one of the because the as someone I knew who was he was my editor at the newspaper, and he was starting a science fiction kind of like a fanzine, and he hired me because he sat down to talk to me about, so do you know anything about science fiction? And I gave him, the history of just about everything in science fiction and every author because I'd read it all. So he was like, okay, she knows. So while I was there, he had a bunch of young illustrators there doing covers and stuff for the magazine. And one of them was this guy named Courtney Skinner. And I'd always liked Courtney's work because, in particular, he was a New Englander, and he also, besides doing illustrations, he did a lot of historical stuff, and he was just really great when it came to matching historical stuff. So when I thought of him, I said, "Oh my goodness, I wonder if Courtney's still, doing illustrations and stuff because he'd be able to nail medieval." And so I found him. He lives in Virginia now, And I sent him the book, and he came back to me and he said, I see medieval woodcuts, but in a modern style. And I see a medieval border around them. And I just went, that's great. Because when he said medieval woodcuts, I said, I like medieval woodcuts too, but sometimes they're kind of scary because they're very
Hmm.
exaggerated. You've seen them. They're very, they make, people look
Almost
kind
like
of
almost gargoyle-ish.
almost gargoylish. And I was like, that's too scary. And he's like, no, we're going to modernize it a little, but it's going to still seem like a woodcut. And yep, right. So, um, and then when he showed me these borders, and I went, oh, they're beautiful. And I was like, that's it. They were going to be black and white illustrations anyway. I said that is like the best I could have ever imagined. So, I'm really grateful to Courtney Skinner, for the illustrations that he did.
I think the cover illustration, I love that.
Yeah,
Absolutely love that. It is warm and fuzzy.
yeah.
As you can tell, again, I don't have professional graphic feedback. But again, when I look at
Warm
something,
and fuzzy. Yeah, that's a professional term.
I know, right? But someone that actually had like a degree in graphic design will be like, well, the way the saturation and the highlights versus the stuff I make, I'm like, oh, it feels right. And they're like, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, I
Yes.
don't know. It's and so but to me, that's what it
Yes.
is. It's warm and
Yes.
fuzzy. It's the
I think
feeling of
that's
like
it.
it's a feeling of like a fireplace. And
And really the cover design was by a woman named Diane Lawrence, and she used one of Courtney's illustrations and then created this color scheme to go with it.
it's
So
perfect. It
yeah,
really is
it
perfect.
is. It really is. And I want to, kudos to my publisher because I said, look, please, Gary, I really want a hardcover version of this because I want this to be, this is something I want people to have in their library or school libraries to have. And paperback just doesn't cut it. And he went along with me on that. And before we go, I need to
Mhm.
tell people too. I don't know when this is going to air, but when you go to the online behemoth who shall not be named that sells books among other things, they're very behind sometimes with their shipping and with their stocking, and things seem to be out of stock when they're not. So if people want to get this in a very quick, in a quick fashion and at a 15% discount, they should go to the publisher's bookstore. He created his own bookstore because of those problems with the big online booksellers. And it's called faithfultext.com.
Okay.
Faithfultext.com. You can put in a code to get 50% off, and they'll have the book. It'll always be in stock. You'll get it within a few days. So I just needed to say that
Of
because
course.
I would love people to have it. And if you do order this and it's already Christmas or after Christmas, this is also a treat that you can read for yourself during the Christmas season. When you finally, like with women like me, moms, wives, we don't relax until Christmas. So
That's very true. That's very true.
so we don't have time to read this stuff, but from between Christmas and New Year's, that's a great time, or after New Year's, to read these a nice Christmas book. So
Well, if you could please just in our email thread, if you could just copy and paste the link to it, and I'll put
I
that right in
will.
the description for everybody to see. And as well as any other links you want in there. I always whatever you want, I'll plug. And
Okay, great. I'll send that to you.
well, thank you so much for your time. I thoroughly enjoyed this conference. I needed it. This was I think the snow was I think that was a sign that it's gonna work out. It's the steampunk bridge, and I think the nugget I got out of this is you can't sit around and think of all the other possibilities. They're just that robs the magic of it. It's just it falls in your lap when it's meant to. And it takes patience and it takes surrendering, which are two things I'm very much so not good at. And
But you are good. I bet you would be good though at keeping open to possibilities. You're not
uh,
going to just when you see something, you're not going to just dismiss it. Sometimes something you would ordinarily dismiss, God's going to say,
just keep
"Wait
an
a minute, wait a
open up
minute."
all of
I
them.
mean, there have been a million romance movies written about the people who were perfect for each other, who were just passing like ships in the night, didn't see
Mhm.
it. Something had to happen to bring that together, and then the audience and all their friends, everybody was like, well, of course they're perfect for each other, but they didn't know it.
Yeah,
And they wouldn't have known it if they had just kept going on their
on
courses.
their respective, and I know
Right.
what's best. I know what's supposed to
Right.
happen.
And I'm headed here and I'm not watching anything to the side. I'm just dead, I'm just blindly going this way because right now I'm not looking for a relationship, or I'm not, interested in that guy or anything like that.
Yeah,
And, they were wrong.
yeah,
It was, and everybody knows that kind of situation happens. And
yes,
that some people, will pass like ships in the night because they are not open to what they're not looking around and seeing what's in front of them, or seeing what God is kind of nudging them towards. So
mm,
the closer you get to God, the easier it is for you to feel those little nudges, like I'm supposed to do this, or I'm not supposed to do that. That's something that takes practice.
okay. Um, I'm getting my download from you.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right. I need. This was perfect. I needed this, and
Good.
um,
Well, God bless you, Tommy. It was great to finally have a face-to-face conversation with you. Instead of hearing the highlights from my husband, who always enjoys talking to you.
well, the tables have turned. Now he can hear the highlights from you.
Yeah, right, right, right,
Yeah,
right.
you'll be like, I'll put you in touch if he's free. Tommy's my friend now, and
I know you're just worming your way into the family.
I
I
am.
understand.
It's the long con. I'm. That's the whole podcast is a charade. It's just to get adopted by you guys. This is all front. This is all a facade. It's fake. This is a CIA front. It's so many layers deeper than what you think. Um,
That's
but
great.
Miss Guillen, thank you so much for your time
Oh, you're
and
welcome.
a
Thank you
beautiful
for
book.
reading my book.
Absolutely. As I said, I will. You give me time out of your day, I'm gonna read the book. That's just
This is great. Well, if a
that.
32-year-old male likes this book, then I think I've succeeded,
And
because
I truly, it's. I think as we said earlier, when the heart's not behind it, you can tell. I can't. I couldn't have the conversation we had today if my heart wasn't there. And I can't fake it. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I can't. I couldn't sit here and tell you I needed this episode if I truly didn't mean it. So I genuinely thank you from the bottom of my heart. I needed
Oh,
today's episode, and that
you're
I'm
welcome, and
very,
thank
very
you.
grateful. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, because I really enjoyed this as well. I
Well,
mean,
thank you.
yeah, it's not often that you can talk to someone like yourself and feel like you could have something you can say to them.
Yeah. You start talking to anybody on the street about a download, they're gonna call the cops. They'll be like, I got a download. I saw it all in my head. They're gonna be like, honey, get in the car. There's a crazy guy. And I'm like, no, listen, it's a download from God. They're like, get away from me. It's no, I get that too. We can be crazy in our own. We can confirm each other's craziness. But
Okay.
Miss Guillen, thank you so much. This episode will
Well,
be up later today. And if you could please send me those links, I'll put them in the description.
I'll
And
do that.
have a very Merry Christmas.
You too. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you so much. God bless everybody. Thank you so